when we ignore who we have and instead go after who we don't have, it becomes so much more expensive to run our businesses, and we don't have the stability. There are practices where they have a lot of gratitude for their clients and their patients, and they treat them with so much respect, right? And give them a good experience. They may have a fourth, a tenth of the number of new patients that other practices have, yet they're more stable. So when you can build a place where people feel is home, that is one of the best business models there is out there. It really is. And there could be a pandemic, and there could be a hospital that opens up right next to you, and a competitor can come up right next to you down the street, and it won't hurt you because you've built something that is really, really sticky.
Nothing in this podcast is intended to render legal, financial, medical, or other professional information. Because the details of your situation are fact-dependent, we highly encourage you to find a recommended individual that you can trust to give you the expertise that you need related to your situation. Well, good morning or good evening, Docpreneur Nation. You're listening to Concierge Medicine Today's Docpreneur Leadership Podcast. And today we have a very special friend and a special physician and a special guest, a returning guest. We have Dr. Una, and she's here to talk about what she's doing, but also her new book called The Visibility Formula, Taking Your Business from Best Kept Secret to Household Name. So, Dr. Una, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this, and thank you for all you do for physicians. I'm always blown away by the level of service you give to the concierge docs, especially in this time, we need it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, moreover, I consider you a friend, and your view of entrepreneurship in healthcare is one of the most, I think, inspiring voices in healthcare. Whenever I bump into different doctors, like, have you heard of, EntreMD? Have you heard of Dr. Una? Like, oh yeah, I've listened to her before. Like, they know you. You're almost this household name in a lot of physician offices.
Well, thank you. That's a powerful reflection. Thank you for your kind words.
Well, we're excited to have you back. And if you're a regular listener, and welcome to all of you who are maybe just listening new to this summer and listening in for the first time. But as a podcaster, I'm also a listener myself. And actually, I've been a listener longer than I've been a podcaster. And we want to try to break down today with Dr. Una kind of some of the story behind what she does in the business side of medicine, and particularly when it concerns the stories behind the concepts of things like customer service and taking your business to the next level, taking your practice to the next level. We're going to talk, I hope, a little bit about the difference between being a physician and having that hat on and rolling in that lane every day, and then becoming a physician entrepreneur, and managing staff and HR and looking at your numbers and all that kind of fun stuff. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about your career journey up to this point?
Yeah, it's a really long one. I think I'm on life number 9. But I spent a lot of time growing up in Nigeria. That's kind of where I went to medical school. Initially, I was going to be an interior designer, but anybody who knows Nigerians knows that's not really an option. You get to be a doctor, a lawyer, or maybe an accountant. That's it. You have 3 options. And so my parents never tried to force me into that, but the culture is there. So medicine it became. Absolutely loved medical school, and people would ask me, "What do you want to be after medical school? What do you want your specialty to be?" I'm like, "I don't know, but I know it's not pediatrics." And so the joke is on me because at the end of medical school, I really wanted to be an OBGYN. I had a lot of passion for the mommies. It's such a vulnerable time in life, but I was not willing to do the overnight call forever. And I'm like, so where can I still find the mommies? And pediatrics it was. So I moved over to New Jersey, did my residency over there, and like the South a little more. So moved to Atlanta, got my first big attending job, and all my dreams were to come true after, a gazillion years of training. And I remembered it being so anticlimactic. Like, okay, so I've seen the patient, I wrote the prescription, I did this, it was amazing. So I do this 20 times a day till I'm 70. Like, that's it. Like, I've arrived. What is this? And so from that moment, from the time I saw my very first patient, I knew I wanted more. I had no idea what more was, but I was like, this cannot be it. My boss at the time, when he found out I was not going to stay after the first year of my contract, he said, go start a practice. I'm like, dude, nobody starts a practice a year out of residency. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And besides, you may have missed this really big bump, but I'm pregnant. This is not the time. And he said, and I have to go find him and thank him again, but he said, by the time the business needs more of your time, the baby won't be a baby anymore. This is probably the best time to start. And I say ignorance is bliss, because I was just like, yeah, start practice. Amazing. I'm going to hang a shingle and they will come. And so I hung the shingle, and to my shock, horror, and terror, they did not come. I was like, wait a minute. You mean I have to market? You mean I have to go tell people to send me patients? I'm like, oh my goodness. And so right after that, I felt stuck, because I'm like, I'm a professional. I don't do things like that. I'm an introvert. I don't do things like that. It's like, I thought I would hang the shingle and they'll come. I'm a great physician. I don't understand what is going on here. And the people who were doing really well, they were really amazing. And I was just what I was. And I remember reading a book by Brian Tracy, and he said in that book, all business skills are learnable. All business skills are learnable. And that was a light bulb moment for me, because I was like, wait a minute. I may not know how to market, I may not know how to sell, I may not know how to hire, fire, do all of those things, but I do know how to learn.
Yeah,
And
you spent
so,
years doing it, right? You're really
yes,
good at learning new stuff.
very good at doing it. So that's when I fell in love with learning about business. How do you market? How do you sell? How do you hire? How do you build team culture? How do you figure out these numbers? And all of that in my practice really started thriving. I hired a doctor who only wanted to work 1 day a week. So she worked Fridays. I had a long weekend every weekend. Everything was good. It was beautiful. And then in 2016, I remember, being in my office in the morning after prayer, meditation, that kind of time. I just had this aha moment, like, medicine as we know it is gone. And if all you know how to do is doctor, like, just see just the clinical side, you're going to be out of luck. And now it makes sense. 8 years ago, it didn't, right? When that happened, and I was like, I was like, okay, what else could I do? I have a successful practice. Maybe I can show other people how to do it. Maybe I could be a speaker. Maybe I could be an author. Maybe it could be all of those things. And I started that journey of retooling myself, where I'm stacking new tools on on my skill of being a clinician. And that was the start of EntreMD. That's when I really start, because I thought about it, it's like, it's not going to be bad for just me. It's going to be bad for the entire physician community. It's 1 million physicians. And so, like, I'm learning this, but I don't have time to learn it and then come back and teach everybody. I'm going to learn it and tell the people that step behind me, like, hey, guys, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And so that became a podcast, that became a ton of books, that became the EntreMD business school, that became lots of live events. And I've been doing that ever since. That's phase 2 of my career, is just devoted to helping doctors build profitable businesses, because that's the way. That's the way out of the chaos we see in healthcare.
Well, and you are a best-selling author, an international speaker, host of a top 100 podcast. I'm sure it's continuing to rise in the numbers, if it hasn't already. Now, last count I looked at your website, it had 650,000 downloads. I think you're probably well over that by now. Are you close to
Yeah,
1 million already?
we're not at 1 million yet, but we're working on it.
I remember when we first hit that 1 million views, like that 1 million reads, I was like, oh, wow. Like, it took years to get there, right? Like, but you made it, and that's a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
so go out, get yourself a steak dinner, whatever you do, Brussels sprouts, and celebrate those moments, because, hey, you made a dent, and that's awesome. But you've recently released the visibility formula, and we'll put the links in the show notes below, but it's called the Visibility Formula: Taking Your Business from Best Kept Secret to Household Name. Now, as we unpack this, I want to start discussing the book from the perspective of the topic of mindset, and then kind of move deeper into the business of medicine from there. So I was listening to a fellow podcaster explain mindset shift in being an entrepreneur. And so many people think that being a great doctor is the person who has all of the right answers. When in summary, a great physician entrepreneurs don't always make great decisions, but they make the right decisions, and they make sure that the right decisions get made. Maybe not necessarily by you, but by the right people. So there's a bit of a mind shift there. Talk about how you are helping physicians in what's in the book related to drawing the line between wise and unwise, not illegal and legal or moral or in immoral or ethical and unethical in the practice.
Yeah. So first of all, when you think about being a physician entrepreneur, I'd really like to invite everybody to think of it as though, I don't want to say you have two personalities because we're physicians. That takes us to to other thoughts, right? But like they're two completely different hats. They're completely different. When I started my private practice, I mean, I had beautiful 5-star reviews. I had patients who had, literally turned their lives around with the services that I offer. And, people who would follow me wherever I was going to go. But if that was all I had, I would have failed as an entrepreneur because none of that has anything to do with being able to build a successful business. And I remember being in resistance because I'm like, I've paid my dues. I've done over 10 years of education. I cannot possibly need to start over. Like everything I've done should be enough for where I'm going. But it's a complete mindset shift where you're like, I am starting not from the beginning, like I have no advantages, but I'm starting from the beginning. I'm starting with a beginner's mindset. I'm starting with a growth mindset. Like I do not know what it takes to run a successful business, and I'm willing to learn. Right now, as physicians, we tend to be perfectionists, which is not bad. Like if there's a neurosurgeon in somebody's brain, we kind of expect them to be as perfect as they can be. But in entrepreneurship, it's the complete opposite almost. And I like to use the iPhone as an example because the mindset of Apple has never been to give us a perfect phone. It has never occurred to them once, like, this year, let's make a perfect phone. The mindset is let's make a better phone. And so when we go to buy the iPhone 15, which I think is the one that is out now, we already know that iPhone 16 is in production.
Mm-hmm.
We already expect to buy iPhone 16 next year because we know the goal is better. Now, if we bring that to our businesses, where the goal is not perfection, the goal is better. And so I know how to put myself out to promote my business this way. Tomorrow, I'm going to do it better. I don't know how to lead my team, but I know I can at least have my first staff meeting. I can cast vision. I can tell them what outcomes their roles are responsible for. And the next time I can do it better. I can do an event to promote my business. And I didn't get as many people as I wanted, but I got some people and I got some clients from it. Next time I'm going to do it better. I don't have everything it takes to build this utopia of a practice that I want to build right now, but I can build this version right now, and tomorrow I can make it better. Once we have that mindset, especially as physicians, we really become unstoppable because our good is really good. But now we have this mindset, I'm going to continue to acquire the skills so I can make it better and better and better. And that frees us from perfectionism. And I don't know if there's anything that stops physicians more than that, right? Like I need to have it all together, and entrepreneurs don't have it together. They just do their best.
Well, I usually save this question for the end in our lightning round of questions, but you were on a learning tour, so to speak, a learning adventure when you went into to start this. And so where were you turning? Were you turning to peers? Were you turning to colleagues? Were you turning to business people? I think it was Jeff Henderson said, hey, if, for example, Coca-Cola has a board of advisors, I maybe should have a board of advisors too, personally, as an executive. And so he was talking about being in a job transition. And he's like, we should, in those times, these challenging times where we're learning about something or trying something new, and we don't know what the outcome is going to be in the next 6 months, we should surround ourselves with who can help us see our blind spots. Where did you turn for some of those blind spots?
So in the very beginning, I didn't know anything about this learning path. What I knew was books and audio programs. So I did a lot of, like Brian Tracy stuff, Jim Rohn, all of, John Maxwell, all of those people. So I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of listening. And I was also a really socially awkward, super shy, introverted introvert. So reading was all I was going to do. So that's what I started with. And then as I went on in my journey and started getting more and more developed, then I started investing in coaching. And for me, I think coaching is like the eighth wonder of the world, because I'm like, somebody has gone on, they've made all of these mistakes, and they've risen to a place where I want to go. And they've helped other people get to where I want to go. I'm just like, here's my money, take me where I want to go. Right. And that doesn't mean I don't have a part to play, but there's so many landmines and mistakes and things that I avoid. There are conversations that in 5 minutes, something that could have been a mistake that I would have had to deal with for 5 years gets averted, right? And so coaching, that made such a huge difference for me. And then the third thing is really being around peers. And when I say peers, I don't mean physicians. I mean people who are entrepreneurs and people who have built businesses that are larger than mine, or like mine, or larger than mine. And the reason I started doing that, I stumbled on that because I started learning this concept of the power of your environment. And at the end of the day, you are going to reflect your environment. And by environment, I mean the people in it. So the same way I'm in my home, the temperature is set at 70 degrees. So it's cool here, even though it's hot outside, but it's cool here. I control the environment. In the same way, I can control my environment, like who my inner circle is, and then I will reflect that even though things are outside. So people outside may be saying, oh, private practices don't work, concierge practices, it's hard to pull it off, and blah, blah, blah. That's outside. But I can build an environment where no, this is this, we thrive in this, we crush this and all of that. And I will reflect that because I'm in that environment. So I started surrounding myself with really successful entrepreneurs. Some of them are mentors, some of them are colleagues and stuff like that. They normalize the challenges of entrepreneurship. So I don't get bent out of shape when challenges show up, because I'm like, look at them, pick anyone. They're dealing with some version of the same thing. And then they also serve as real life, in real time vision boards, right? Like there's a vision board I create, but when somebody walks up to you and says, I just closed $100 million contract, all of a sudden your big goal feels smaller, not smaller to say, go get 100 million, but smaller. Like if they can do that, then surely
It
I
almost
must be
feels
able to do
your goal
this.
feels doable.
Yeah, very doable. And
Yeah.
so building those communities, it has really been a game changer for me. So it's the books and the podcasts and all of that, is the coaches, is the community. Yeah.
So there's two questions I have, and I'll let you pivot onto both. One is coach versus consultant, because sometimes we can see the consultant who comes in as, well, they're just here to fix things and change things, but sometimes they're also a coach in some ways. So I want you to explain the difference between the two, but then also, what do you say to the physicians out there who say, well, I agree with the books and I agree with the audio and the learning, but I don't necessarily feel like I should go to somebody who doesn't have the same perspective about medicine and healthcare, because I don't want a non-clinician telling me how to practice medicine, which practicing medicine and practicing business is two different things. And you know that better than anybody. So riff on those two items, pathways a little bit.
Yeah, so coach versus consultant, so I have worked with both. But I'm very acutely aware of where I'm trying to go. And so I'm always running with a vision that's really large, that makes no sense that I have that I have a vision like that. And so it usually puts me in a position where I don't have the competency to pull it off. I have to acquire it. Right. And so, and sometimes there are things that haven't necessarily been done, like the EntreMD Business School, the model that it is, it hasn't necessarily been done. A consultant may not be able to show me what to do with it because it's just different. So I work a lot with coaches because there's a lot of visioneering, reverse engineering, lots of questions that have to be asked to clarify stuff. It's not a straight road at all. So I've done a lot of that. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about I don't need a coach. I don't, because there's a lot to be said there. First of all, I don't know that a non-clinician can really tell you how to practice medicine. Like, a doctor is probably right, right? But a lot of times private practices don't go out of business because the clinician doesn't know what to do clinically. That's usually not the problem, right? The problem is usually around cash flow, or something with the team, or, is just so poorly run that, or the business model doesn't make any sense. So it doesn't have a chance at survival. It's usually not a physician who per se who would help you with that. Now, someone like me, I could, but that's because I'm a physician entrepreneur, not because I'm a physician, right? And so the clinical side, yes, but again, we have to come with that beginner's mindset. We don't know that much about business. We need help with that. There's nothing in medical school or residency training that brought us to a position where we understand how to market, we understand how to sell, we understand how to build teams, we understand how to drive profits. Some doctors still get turned off by that. Like, why would we talk about profits? This is healthcare. We live in an economic world. So we should have people before profits. But right after people needs to be profit, or we will go out of business and then we can't serve the people. Profit is what gives you the privilege to continue to serve people. It is a non-negotiable, right? And so when we understand that, then we understand that we need help, and the person may not be a clinician, and that is totally fine. We're not looking for a clinician. We're looking for somebody who understands how to run profitable businesses and can help us through that. Now, someone may say, but I can figure it out. I can read a book. I can do all of that. And I've done all of that, right? But Mike, I'll tell you the way I think about this. I attend my 90th birthday party a lot. I think a lot about 90, who's going to be there, what kind of state of health will I be in, what would I have done for the physician community, what will my legacy be? I think about that a lot. And the first time I thought of, some people do this exercise and say, think about what you want read at your funeral. I'm like, nah, I'm a visual person. I cannot be thinking about my funeral because I'll be dead.
I can see us at 90. Yes, I see that picture.
Right? And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so when I think the first time I did that exercise and I came back to today, I was like, I'm not doing enough now to get me there. Like, if I keep going the way I'm going, I'm not going to be that person at 90. So I'm very aware that for me to, like 90, maybe I live to 100, whatever number that is, to close my eyes and die and go like, I did it all. Like, I did everything I wanted to do. I left a legacy I loved. I changed my world. I served my generation. I left my, my children, they turned out amazing. They got every ounce of support they needed from me. And to look at people at my birthday party crying and talking about how my life changed their world, I'm like, if I want that, I need to be in a hurry right now. Not in a bad hurry, but there are things that need to be done, and they're big things, and they're difficult things, and they're uncomfortable things. But if I want that, now is the time. So I don't have the time not to have a coach.
Wow.
I do not have the time to do the trial and error, because I'm 45 now and it went like that. I only got 45 more and I'm at that 90th birthday party. Wow. So if I'm not on that trajectory, I'm going to get all the help I can. And if you think about it, I'm trying to live an elite life. When I say elite, what I mean by that is peak performance. I want to do it all. I want to leave this planet knowing that I maximize my potential. If that is the case, what LeBron doesn't have a coach? What Stephen Curry doesn't have a coach? What Kobe Bryant doesn't have a coach? What Usain Bolt, fastest man alive, does not have a coach? There is no peak performer that does not have a coach.
Yeah.
It just does not exist. Whether that's in a group setting or one-on-one setting or whatever, there is none. There is no team that has made it to the NBA finals without a coach. It has never happened.
Yeah.
So I don't have time to not have a coach. Could I read books? Could LeBron read books about basketball? Could he watch YouTube videos about basketball? Of course. Will he ever get to the NBA doing that? Of course not. So I decide to be an elite person, peak performer. So I pay for it.
I love that. No, I think that that's great because 5 words from my doctor, your words carry 100 pounds with me. Like you can change my life with 10 words, and good or bad. And so we need you to be there for us today and next week and next year and maybe in 20 years, so yeah, your visibility and your communication in our life is so important, and we need you to put people first, but then also be in business too. And I remember was a concierge doctor. He's still practicing from North Carolina. He may be listening, and he did a lot of charity work. He flies out to an island and stays there for quite a while and helps out by providing care there as part of his charitable kind of things that he does. And he has a heart for it. But I remember him saying, look, in order to do that, which is what I really am passionate about, I've got to be doing really well over here. And I had to learn about business, and it wasn't easy. All right. Well,
Can I talk about that a little
yeah,
bit? Because
please.
you poked the bear a little bit there. That is so critical, because I cannot tell you how many times people will tell me, I don't care about the money. I just want to help people.
Mhm.
And then they set up a business. And I'm like, okay, time out. Okay. There is a business and there is a charity, and they're two completely different things, and they play by two completely different rules. If you bring charity rules into business, it doesn't work. You bring business rules into charity, like, you have to play the game you're in by the rules of the game. You don't come into a basketball game and say, I want to kick the ball. We don't kick the ball here. We kick the ball when we play soccer, right? Like,
Mhm.
you have to understand the rules. And so there's so many businesses that have gone out of business because they're like, I just want to serve the underserved, and I want to spend 2 hours with each patient because they deserve it. That's what I want to do. I'm like, the problem with that model is the math is not mathing. There's no way to make the math work. And so if that what you really want to do is serve the underserved, why don't you build this nice, profitable practice right here? And then you start a foundation that will support what you want to do with the underserved. So build the business to fund the charity, but don't try to make the business a charity. The math doesn't work. The charity is not confused. They know they have to raise money. So you're not raising money and you're not making money. It can't work,
Yeah.
right? And so as doctors, we love to help. But if we truly want to help, one of the best things we can do is we can become experts at building profitable businesses, so we have the funds to help as many people as we want to help. But making your business a charity is not the way to do that.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. Next, I want to talk about the importance of leading others towards making better decisions from not necessarily the org chart perspective of a physician entrepreneur where you're, one of the leaders at the top, but there is this deep culture of appreciation when you become a leader. You suddenly wear the hat of, I have to care about employees, and I have to listen to them and listen to what their needs are and manage their vacation time and approve this and approve that. But there is a genius and an active gratitude for the team and the work when everyone is working cohesively. Explain how gratitude for the customer, i.e., the patient, plays an important role in the visibility formula that you talk about in your book.
Yeah. So there's a statement I used to tell my team back when I started, because maybe they would have an attitude with a patient or anything like that. And I'm like, you want to have a lot of respect for your patients. And of course, we lead with patients, but I was trying to make a point here. And I said, because that's your paycheck. You're mean to your boss because that's your
Mhm.
real boss. Your salary does not come from my 401k. It comes from whatever they pay to be here, right? And when you think about, because most people don't make the connection, right? I come to work, I do tasks, and I get paid. They
Mhm.
totally miss the client or the patient in that whole mix. And I'm like, that's your real boss. That's who that is. And so really the thought here is selling your people on the idea of customer relationship management. That's really what it's about, right? We're grateful that we have patients to serve. We serve them to the best of our ability. We treat them with respect, especially now, you know what I mean? Like people are having a really hard time, right? And to come to a place where they don't feel like a number, they feel like, I came to my family, but they just happen to be doctors and nurses. Like that's a really great feeling. When you can inject that into your team, then it creates a really sustainable business, right? So I know you know this, right? But a lot of times with entrepreneurs, we're trying to find new clients, find new patients, put the word out there and all of that. And then there is this whole bucket that creates stability in the practice that we completely miss. If you have a practice where your patients are treated well, so they continue to come back. It's always easier to bring somebody who's been there before to come back than it is to acquire someone new. So, which means the cost of your operation is much less and your profit margin is much higher. Now, of course, people first, but we're talking numbers here. This is a business conversation. So you have that. And then not only do they do that, not only do they become second and third generation revenue and all that, but then they're the people who would refer people to you. They're the people who give you the good reviews and keep your visibility on an all-time high. So when we ignore who we have and instead go after who we don't have, it becomes so much more expensive to run our businesses and we don't have the stability. There are practices where they have a lot of gratitude for their clients and their patients, and they treat them with so much respect, right? And give them a good experience. They may have a fourth, a tenth of the number of new patients that other practices have, yet they're more stable. Yet they're more stable. So when you can build a place where people feel is home, I mean, that is one of the best business models there is out there. It really is. And there could be a pandemic and there could be a hospital that opens up right next to you and a competitor can come up right next to you down the street and it won't hurt you because you've built something that is really, really sticky.
I know that one day the story is going to come to your office or mine, or we'll get that email where a staff member of the practice, or maybe the physician himself or herself, said, you know what, I had a really unique experience the other day. My patient walked back out into the parking lot and they had a flat tire and we went ahead and changed it for them. Like that day is coming. I'm not saying that that's the role of the physician or the practice, but I think that having that perspective of, look, we are here for you. It's no longer about being the best doctor in the world anymore. It's about being the best doctor for the world, for your patients and for your local community, and becoming a stable place, a family, a home, away from home in your local community.
And
But next,
sometimes it's not a whole lot.
Mhm.
Like one of the tricks, trick makes it sound like a bad word, but one of the things I used to do is someone randomly say, Dr. Una, I got into nursing school. I'm like, are you kidding? That's amazing. I'd put it in the reminder section in their chart. Or they'll tell me, oh, it was my 13th anniversary last week. And I'm like, really? What day? And they tell me, and I put it in the reminder section. And so a year later or 6 months later, I'm like, so how's nursing school going?
Mhm.
You remembered? I'm like, of
Yep.
course I remembered. Like, how's it going? Da, da, da. And they're blown, they cannot believe, they're like blown away. Or I'm like, wow, you have another anniversary coming up. You remembered? I'm like, you
Mhm.
told me last year. And just that costs nothing. That costs
Mhm.
30 seconds of documenting in the reminder section in the chart. But the feel of these are my people, like they don't just care that I came here, I brought my kids to get their vaccines and stuff like that. Like they care about me as a human. And
Yeah.
that takes nothing. And you can do it all day, every day.
I heard a story from a physician. I think she's here in the Atlanta area, where one of her patients is a real, real big dog lover, right? And I think that dog had passed away, right? Like that she told the doctor that the dog had passed away, and well, from what I recall from the story, the doctor went out and got a card, like a bereavement kind of card, like I hope you feel better kind of thing. Um, And then 2 weeks later or so, the doctor or the patient comes back in, is kind of in tears, and she's like, "Oh, is everything okay?" Like, "No, it's just y'all mean a lot to me, because you thought enough about 53 cents, 64 cents, whatever the cost of a stamp and the cost of a card was, like you thought to write a little note in that card about, Benji or whatever the dog's name was." And it's those types of little things that are sticky, and they are going after from a patient or customer perspective, that you're going after not in selfish ways for your business, but they're creating that legacy of like, hey, it's memorable. That's a memorable moment. And I'm showing my patients that I'm for them. Like I'm truly here for you in my local community. Now I want to talk about the people that you take with you or you choose to take with you to help you run your business and your practice. Author Elizabeth Dixon, in her book, The Power of Customer Experience. If you haven't read that book, it's amazing. It's green. It's on Amazon. I'll put it in the show notes. But if you haven't read it, Dr. Una, it is a great book. I think you two would be fast friends. I think she's also in the Atlanta area. But I heard her speak about a year ago, and she said something that I thought was so powerful related to healthcare as it overflows into healthcare. She said, customer experience is the overflow of your employees' experience. Your employees won't provide an experience greater than the one they themselves are having. How do you do that when the daily pace of responsibility in healthcare among your team seem to supersede common sense customer service expectations to the paying patients or customers? Because like you said, they're your boss.
Yeah. So for the team, what I've found that helps me create a really rock star like a team is creating a win-win-win situation. And I'll explain what I mean by that. There is the patient, there is the team member, and there is the practice. And creating a situation where all three parties are winning makes it such that everybody has all three have the best experience. And I think that's the best scenario to have. And so as far as the team members, creating a win would look like, number one, giving them the gift of clarity as far as what exactly the outcomes you expect from them are. I cannot tell you how many people are employed. They don't know how to win because
Mhm.
it's not clear. Like, yes, yeah, answer the phone, do all of this, but nobody really wants someone to answer the phone, right? You may want them to schedule X number of appointments, or you want them to have this level of customer service with them, or you want, like, it's something. What is this role responsible for? What are the top five outcomes? Like, if this role creates these five outcomes, you're like, this person is the best thing since sliced bread. Once you have, once you give them that clarity, then you've given them the option, right, of being this person who can come to work and can score every single day. Think about how empowering that is. Think about, like, because you're like, I can go and I can win. Most people, they're playing in a basketball game and they have no idea where the basket is. That is so frustrating.
Yeah.
The second thing is really helping them see how their tasks, their everyday tasks are linked to that outcome, right? Like, and so it's no longer the mundane thing of, oh, I pick up the phone or I greet the patient or I do. They see how the things I do every day, these are the things that can create these outcomes. So they're very clear. One, this is the outcome. Two, these are the tasks that I do that create the outcome. You've really empowered them to win. Okay.
Yeah.
Number three is a little tricky because if it's your first time of hearing about it, you're like, wait, what? Like, no, I don't want to do that. But one of the things I've done with my team, so my direct reports, right? I can't do it for the whole company, is to really find out from them, you know, what are your top three goals on a personal level? What is it that you want? Like, what are three things that if they happened, you're like, 2024 was my absolute best year ever, right? And at the start of your one-on-one meeting, like, so for me, I would meet with my practice administrator. Like, when you meet, you find out from them, like, how's it going with these things?
Mhm.
You may have more experience. You may have access to resources. You may know a book they can read. You can be able to connect them with somebody. There are things you can say that would make a total difference, and it may not take up to 10 minutes.
Mhm.
But when you have somebody who's equipped you to thrive at work and cares at all about your personal life and is doing some things to, it could be as little as, oh my goodness, this person's finances are upside down. Let me get them total money makeover. Or they're really struggling with managing their time and stuff. Let me get them Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. Like, it can be as little as that, but you're really helping them win. I mean, what are they going to do with your patients? They're going to love on your patients. What will happen to the team culture? It will be absolutely amazing. What will happen? I mean, like, to the level of loyalty, because they're winning here. You're helping them win. Why would they go anywhere else, right? And so if we can do those three things, of course, and many more, but we build a different kind of team.
Mhm.
And there are many layers to that, but I think that's a great place to start, is just understanding that concept of creating a win-win-win. Everybody has to win, including the team.
I think that third part is so important, and it's one of those things that you wrench on, like you wrench on an engine, and you work on it and you work on it, and then you're like, all right, we did it. We brought them through this course of, like empowering showing our employees that our staff, that we care about them. We've raised some of their goals. And then there's always the grumpy one, or there's always the one who thought that everything we just went through was, not working. But then you were able to change 3 out of 4 opinions, and raise their awareness of, towards what they want. And it showed them as the employee that, hey, we do care about you. We do want you to succeed. Never mind that one person who had a bad attitude about this. That's not for them. But that is
Yeah.
something that our expectations as the giver of that information to raise, this, and empower them to be better employees. And I always find that I do it, and then I have these grand expectations of how great this content is, and then you give it to them, and then, it doesn't happen as fast, or never really happens as fast as we think it will. But the important part is we do these things to show them that we care for our employees.
Yeah, and to be really clear, sometimes there are employees we don't need to do this for.
Hmm.
Like, because the thing about this is, we want to think about it the way it really is. It's like a playground with a fence.
Hmm.
It's a playground with a fence. And so you may have somebody who you're like, yeah, knowing what I now know, I would not have hired them. Sometimes the way to help them is to de-hire them,
Hmm.
right? And
There's
that's
that
the
fence
that's
has
the
a door and a
kind,
gate.
yeah. It's a kind thing to do, is to let them be. So yes, it will take some time. You're probably, the first time you start doing things like this, people look at you a little suspect, like, okay, what's going on here? But they'll get it and it'll work. But if there's someone that shouldn't be there in the first place, don't feel like you have to keep them. It's a playground with a fence. There are rules. There's a lot of fun, but there are boundaries. And so those two things go hand in hand if you want a great team culture. If you allow people who choose to underperform, choose to be toxic to stay in your company, we call that sanctioned incompetence. That is incompetence that's endorsed by you. It is one of the things that will kill your culture the fastest. And you will build a culture where high achievers cannot stay. Because if I'm treated the same, whether I do what I'm supposed to do or not, I don't want to be here. I want to be
Hmm.
somewhere where I'll be rewarded for taking initiative, for being proactive, for over delivering, and all of those kind of things. I had a client once who, we are talking about this, and she's like, "Oh, I'm too scared to, we say de-hire, not fire, but I'm too scared to de-hire this person." All of that. I'm like, "But you have really, really great team members, and I can guarantee you they're going to start looking." And so
Hmm.
eventually, she de-hires this person, and her manager is like, well, one of her managers is like, "Oh, well, I'm glad you did that, because I was actually thinking about leaving." And I'm
Hmm.
so, not only do you have this person who's underperforming, but you also have your A players who are spending their lunch hour looking for somewhere else to work. So you
Yeah.
lose on both sides.
Yeah. That is so, so true. Well, your new book is called The Visibility Formula, and I think growth-minded people are going to love it. And there's a statement you make, which I love, and which you reinforce and explain in the book to physicians. It says, more or less, walking away from this myth and learning how to make your brand visible can add millions of dollars in revenue to your business every year. What is that myth?
Can you say that again? I missed the last part.
Sure. Walking away from this myth and learning how to make your brand visible can add millions of dollars in revenue to your business every year. What is that myth?
Yeah, one of those myths is if I have a good product or a good service, I don't need to sell it.
Mm.
I don't need to sell it. That is like saying if I write a really good book, I don't need to sell it. But the best sold books are called bestsellers. The best written books, we don't have a name for it. And that doesn't mean I don't need to write a good book. But if I'm going to do the work of writing a good book, then I have to do the work of selling the book.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, what's the point? Nobody's going to read it. Nobody's going to know that it was good.
Mm-hmm.
When I started my private practice, I believed that myth. Hang the shingle, they will come. That's what I believed, right? I hung the shingle, they did not come. I was a good physician, they did not come. I had great bedside manner, they did not come because nobody knew I was there. I was obscure. Nobody had any idea. Now, I learned from Brian Tracy that, okay, all these things you need to do to be visible, they're all learnable. And I started doing them. I started going to OBGYNs. I'm like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is the value I can bring to your patients as they have their babies and all of that stuff. I started going to schools. I'm like, this is what I do. Send me patients. I started going to daycares, send me patients. I started showing up on social media. I did a Facebook live show every week. I called it Legacy Parent Show. And I come to talk to parents about what they needed to do, like to be confident parents and all of those things. I started having a ton of new patients come from that. I extroverted into the marketplace, showed up everywhere. And that literally created millions and millions and millions of dollars over the years, right? But if I had chosen to stay in the mode of hang the shingle and they would come, I'd probably be out of business by now. How did we survive in the pandemic? How did we survive that? It was by being visible. It was by showing up everywhere. It was by telling people we are open and these are the things that we've done to make it a safe experience for you. It was by doing that. And in 2020, we did better than in 2019. And in 2021, we did better than 2020.
Mm-hmm.
In a time when private practices were going out of business.
Yeah.
It's all visibility. So if we will not do the work to make our businesses visible, they will go out of business. And this happens every single day.
I remember he's an article writer. He was real big on teaching people how to write articles and the success that you can have writing articles. And his name was Jeff Herring. And I remember him saying years ago, this is probably over 10 years ago, you don't need to be a star all over, like a superstar everywhere or be seen all over the internet. You just need to be a superstar in your own backyard. And you did the legwork. You went out there and you introduced yourself, and it's tough. You put yourself out there and there's rejection and there's, like dismissiveness and like, what? I don't have time to meet with somebody new. Like, I don't have time to meet new friends and new, but you got to put yourself out there. And there is that but that's part of being a physician entrepreneur. So we're moving into our lightning round of questions. So you can be however brief or long-winded as you would like to on these. But we ask a lot of these of a lot of our guests, and I always, your perspective and opinion is, I mean, I don't know, personally, I've interviewed hundreds of doctors in this space over the years, and you definitely ring in as one of the top 5 to 10. Like, your voice is so empowering and so inspiring, I think, to so many people. You just come at business of medicine so differently. And I appreciate that. So from person to person, thank you for doing that. I'm a little teary and I get a little teary, but I just see that 5 words from my doctor carry a lot of weight, and I need him or her to be there for my kids 30 years from now and 5 years from now. I need these successful practices to be there. And I think that making no money and wearing it like it's a badge of honor, that's not okay. It's not okay with my kids. It's not okay with me as a parent. And, I want you to be in business. I want you're leaving healthcare better than the way you found it. And so thank you. But
Thank
moving
you.
into our lightning round of questions. Um, Favorite book you are reading or audio book that you're reading right or listening to right now that you would say this is a must read or listen to?
Oh man, I read 5 books at the same time, but I'm reading a book called um, Business Models. And I have to get you the link so you can put it in the show notes. And it's a compilation book. They had over 100 people contribute to it, but it
Hmm.
really analyzes a lot of the old businesses like, IBM, Coca-Cola, Apple, and things like that to really talk about the business models that work, the business models you can pivot into, which I think for healthcare, I'm trying to crack the code, right? Like, how do we make business work in healthcare? So it's really insightful for me. Yeah, it's a really good book, but I will put that. I will give you the link to that. But there's a book I did read called 10X is Easier Than 2X. That is an absolute must read. I think I've read it 4 times, and it
Hmm.
came out in May of last year.
Hmm.
Is by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. It's called 10X is Easier Than 2X. It's a really great read.
Wonderful. I'll put those and we have a book list, like a summer reading list and then like a wintertime reading list that we put together. And I always continue to add on to it. And I think the one we're releasing in June 1st is like 34 books. And I think I tried to put onto it 30. And I was like, no, these other four are too good. But our next one is lightning round question. What AI can't do that you can? You can come at this from a physician or a physician entrepreneur perspective, either one.
Yeah, I don't know that AI can read people the way I would read them. As an entrepreneur, my job is to solve problems. And sometimes the problems are not obvious. I can look at someone's numbers in their private practice, and it could look like, oh, sales is a problem. But when I'm having a conversation with a person, I'm very clear this person does not believe they need to market or sell, or they're in resistance. Like, I can't believe I have to do this, and I'm not going to do this. So while sales is a problem, when you look at the data, sales is not really the problem, right? It's a resistance to reality. It's a mindset shift that needs to happen. I don't know that it can do that. Um, the other thing I do is, I'm an introvert, so I spend a lot of time in my brain thinking. And I have the ability to come up with, to really simplify the complex things entrepreneurs need to do for their businesses to work. It's something that I take a lot of time. So I come up with a lot of frameworks and blueprints and all of that. I think um, it's so mine that AI cannot reproduce it. And it's a disservice if I walk away from this planet with it still inside of me. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
so I have all these frameworks. I'm like, I have to get it out. And that's why, I'm committed to writing so many books, because I'm like, I need to get all this stuff out of me. I don't think AI could do that. It
Wow.
could do principles, but I don't think it could do that.
I recalling something you said there with a conversation I had with Dr. Graham. And he said, I had a mentor tell me years ago, look, you're a great physician. Like you're good on the clinical side, but you're really, really good on the frameworks and the models and the business. Like you had a physician tell you, start a business now, it's going to be easier now than it will be later. And just like I told my brother on Monday when I was up in Canada, I was like, hey, there's going to be no better time, you're never going to be ready to have kids. You're never going to be ready to get married. You're going to need to do it eventually, one of these days, if that's what you want to do. All right. And by the way, another book, have you read Visioneering by Andy Stanley? Have you read that one?
No,
It's an
no, I
old book,
haven't.
probably 25 years old. It's called Visioneering. And it's been rewritten, I think, a couple of times, but it's a really good one. I'll put that in a separate email. Um, all right, I'm reading a book or listening to a book. It's called The Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. And in it, he provides a pretty challenging but true observation about success. And I want you to comment on this. There's no question here. The secret to success in almost all fields is large, uninterrupted blocks of focused time. comment on that a moment, especially from a physician's perspective.
Yeah, the focus part is definitely there. I think if somebody's going to live a life where they have an extraordinary amount of success, no becomes their favorite word. Because you're going to have to say no to everything that, like when they're creating the David, they're like, I just took off everything that was not the David. That really narrow focus is needed. So for instance, the EntreMD Business School is going to be 4 years next month. 4 years old next month. And for 4 years, I've tinkered at one program. Now, every entrepreneur knows that every time you take a walk and every time you take a shower, you get 10 new business ideas. This is the way entrepreneurs' minds work. But the ability to say no to everything and spend a long time focusing on one thing is what makes it great. It's something that is really hard for people to do. With the people I work with, it's one of the things I hold them accountable to. Like, nope, we're going to sit with this. We're going to execute on it. We're going to give it our best shot. We're going to keep at it. You're going to see many shiny objects. We don't do shiny objects because when you go to that shiny object, you're going to get back to the same spot and you're going to start looking for another shiny one. And that is how people completely waste their lives. That's how people spend 20 years doing nothing because they were going from one thing to the other. So the ability to stay on something, right? So the mission, like, oh, I want to help 100,000 doctors build profitable businesses. That's been since 2018. And it's still the mission. And I could have shifted to do a gazillion other things, but you just kind of have to stay with it. Who becomes an NBA champion in a year? Like who becomes an elite person? It takes a lot of time. It takes an extraordinary amount of focus. We have the ability to do it. That's how we became doctors. We understand how to do that, but we need to do it in business. Any great company, look at Amazon, Apple, all of them. These are decades in the making. Yeah, it does take that. And I'll tell you something. I was at a conference and one of my friends hosted. It was a real estate conference. It was very interesting to listen to them because I was like, I'm not crazy. Like, this is the way people think. They would say, 5 years from now, we want to be able to buy an apartment complex of this size. So maybe 200 units. But we haven't managed one that is 200 units. So now what we did is we bought this one that is 100, and we're getting our feet wet managing that. And we noticed that one that's 200 units, they also do some short-term rentals. So we're practicing on getting our team tools so that they can do short-term rentals. This is something 5 years from now. And they're going to spend 5 years practicing so they can do it in 5 years. That level of focus, that's what it takes. And so all I've been doing for the last 5 years in EntreMD is getting ready to help 100,000 people.
Well, I love that on your, I'm on my second to last comment here, but I love that on your website it says the EntreMD Business School isn't for dabblers. This is for the physicians out there committed to next level success. I really am 100% in agreement with that. What are some of the ways physicians can connect with you? And that'll be our second to last question.
Yeah, so we are all about equipping physicians, and we do that with people who pay us, and we do that with people who don't pay us. And so, we have, anybody listening now is on a podcast platform already. We have the EntreMD podcast. We have over 400 episodes, and we talk shop. And there's no fluff. It's how to build a team, how to market your business, how to make it through when you're going through challenging times, but you still have a business to run, and all of those things. And so it's called the EntreMD podcast. We call that the free MBA for physicians. Okay. So go subscribe. You're officially enrolled in your MBA program. All right. And then we have books. We have 3 books that we've written now. And so we have the visibility formula you talked about. We have the EntreMD method. We have Made for More. And really, it's all about empowering physicians. I am allergic to fluff. So these are not fluffy books. These are books you can literally take, follow step by step, and create really great transformations in your business. And so we call that the $15 MBA. Okay. So the books are all less than $15. We call that the $15 MBA. Really great reads. And then the third, for the person who says, I am committed to building a profitable 7-figure or multiple 7-figure business so that I have the freedom to live life, practice medicine on my terms. And I know I need the mentorship. I know I need the community. And I really know I need the accountability. Then the EntreMD Business School is our year-long program. And I say year-long, we have people who came in 2020 who still haven't left, but it's a year-long program. And, entremd.com/call is where you go to just talk to the team and see if this is something that would be a great next step for you. We don't do any high pressure sales, so nobody's going to force you to do anything. We'll just sit with you, look at what is going on with you, and help you decide if this was a best next step for you.
Well, before we finish up, what's next for you? Do you have plans or projects for 2024 or thinking about 2025, of course?
Oh my goodness. I always have something, I always have something up my sleeve. We have a live event coming up. EntreMD Live is going to be in June. We do that every year. And it's kind of our open event. And we just go through the 7-figure framework, like the 7-figure roadmap. How do you get there? Right. So at least you know how this works. You get to network with other physician entrepreneurs, lots of fun. I probably have 2 more books coming out this year. One will be on the profitable private practice, specifically geared towards people who have insurance-based practices, but of course the principles apply across the board. And yeah, we're just out here serving doctors. It's so cool. It's so cool.
Absolutely. Well, you're truly an inspiration, I think, to so many who are going to be the physicians of the future. They're going to be the physician leaders of the future. They're going to learn how to lead others well, and other physicians looking at, I want to do that too. They're going to look to those examples that you've, put out into the marketplace. You've trained and coached and educated and, empowered and put out there. They're going to look to your your example and their example as well. So you have truly been a wonderful guest, but not only that, you're not only what is it we say around here? It's no longer about being the best doctor in the world anymore. You are the best doctor for the world and for your patients and for your local community. So thank you, Dr. Una, for being our guest today and coming back on. And we can't wait. When the next book, you'll be right here. Next invitation,
Well,
we'd love to
thank
have
you.
it. So, and we'd love to talk about it. So can't wait for what's ahead for you, because many bright things, bright future for the physicians that are going to be talking with Dr. Una in the future. Thanks again for being our guest.
Thank you so much. And again, I will say this every time I see you. Thank you so much for everything you do for physicians everywhere. You're a gift to the community, and we're grateful.
Thank you.